It is a lot easier to stay sober than to get sober. So I tried it again. I'm an achiever. So I kept thinking, I got this. I can do it. In the book, I do share about the last time alcohol got the best of me. I mean,
Yeah.
I was passed out and on the ground. If my husband wasn't there, I don't know if I would. I mean, it
Yeah.
just completely obliterated me.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started.
All right, Be It Babe, I am really excited for you to listen to this. I want you to I think it's also really important, even though the topic of this will be sobriety, even if you don't even if you're comfortable with alcohol, it's not an issue for you, you don't have any problems, because you're my high growth, high achieving, awesome women that you, and few good men that you are. I think it's really worth listening because there's some great tips from our guest, Chris Janssen, who's the author of Grace Yourself. She offers some really good ways of rethinking about how we are trying to achieve outcomes that we want. And I really appreciate, I learned so much from just reading the parts of her book I got a sneak peek on. And also really getting to just chat. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, I even screwing that up. Like not screwing that up. That's a little bit judgment. That's a bit shame, but like, I can be even better about how I'm thinking about the outcomes that I'm wanting and why I'm wanting them so I can achieve them in a way that is healthy and amazing. And you also hear her just wonderful, beautiful story. And I think it's so awesome to hear women who share through vulnerability, like what life can be like and how we can be kind to ourselves. And so this is a great conversation for you. So everyone's going to learn something from it. Here is Chris Janssen. All right, Be It Babe. I'm super excited because today's guest I got to meet in person. You know, those moments where you kind of make eye contact with someone and then later on you end up in the exact same room as them and you're like, hey, I already met you, right? So it's kind of like those like rom-com movies where they pass each other on the train or whatever, and then they're like in the meeting, right? So Chris Janssen is our guest today. She is the author of the newest, most amazing book called Grace Yourself. And I'm just really excited to have this conversation with you, Chris, but I also am so glad we got to meet. We got to have dinner together. Like we just kept hanging out all weekend long in Nashville. So Chris, tell everyone who you are and what you rock at.
Oh, I'm so happy I met you. I'm so happy I know you. So happy to be on the show. Yeah, I am a life coach and I have been loving writing books. This is my second book. So, really, what I do is I help high achieving perfectionists navigate performance pressure, overcome self sabotage, rewrite narratives. That's a big part of what I do, and attach meaning to life events and circumstances, usually those circumstances outside of our control. Right. So that's really my niche and what I love doing and what I'm very good at. And the books help people do that. And they're full of tools and exercises too, because we all know it's a good idea to do that. But then how do you do it? So I walk people through how to.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think every listener's ears perked up when you just basically said all the labels that they, this is them, the high achieving, high performing, perfectionist. And I think some of those times we don't want people to know that about us. So we like to hide those labels as well. And I think we can talk more about that when we get into your book. You've now written 2. Can we talk a little about the journey of writing? Because I think a lot of people have a story to share. And something I love about the way you write, I feel like I was sitting down with you. The way you write, it's not just conversational. You are sharing your story, but also I love how you are anticipating what your reader might even be thinking before they think it. So can we talk a little about the journey to write and writing your story specifically? Because that's hard to do. You're sharing things that I don't know, maybe people want to keep quiet about themselves. So how did you do that? How did you go, yeah, here's all the things that I did.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Part of it's my age. I'm 55. My kids are all in their 20s, and part of it is I don't care as much as I used to when I was in my 30s. Thank you for saying that. I hear that a lot, that my writing's very conversational. I've always loved writing since I was a little girl. I wanted to be a famous lyricist in Nashville. Like, I wanted to write, but I have no musical talent whatsoever. I can't even clap on beat in church. So that didn't pan out.
I understand that
But
too. I used to wait for people to clap and I go, okay, let me get on their beat.
Yeah. Oh, I know. My husband's like holds my hands in church and says, okay, now. But yeah, I actually years and years ago went to a few writing conferences and I made a stab at writing fiction, like fantasy. It was horrific. I was terrible at it. So I like reading books, but then after I became a coach, I thought, oh, I want all this written down. I won't be here forever. So I'd love this written down, mostly for my kids. And I really, truly love my clients. I love them. So when I'm writing, I'm definitely writing to my clients. And that helps a lot. Any writer, I was just coaching a writer and saying, this is more about who you're talking to than letting us know your story. And once you're doing that, you're able to be more vulnerable and share the parts for me, I could share the parts of myself that, yeah, I would think theoretically they'd be pretty embarrassing to share. If I'm sharing them because it's going to help somebody else come out of the dark and take the shame off their stuff, definitely I'm going to share it. And then, of course, when I was done writing, I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I don't want anyone to read it. But then that passed too, because it's important. It was put on my heart to write. And this book, Grace Yourself, the subtitle's How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want.
Yeah.
And it's really mostly about overcoming self-sabotage and being a perfectionist. In order to help people with that, I do share how I used to be addicted to alcohol and I'm not anymore, and how being a high achiever, being a perfectionist played into those habits that were really bad for me.
When I was reading the first chapters of your book, guys, I got the sneak peek. First of all, I sat and read them at lunch. So again, that conversationality was like really easy for me to flow through and read that. But why I think it's exciting to talk to you today is I actually think that you could almost insert alcohol and sobriety from any kind of addiction, because the way you talk about, I'm just going to spoil something. I think it's like in chapter 2. You're like, I had a spreadsheet and I would measure it, and I would do it after 5. I had to be after 5 o'clock, or it's on the weekends. I had all these rules, and I was like, I know too many women who do that with food, or they do that with shopping, or they do it with lots of different things. If I have all these rules and it's all under my control, then it can't be an addiction that's controlling me. And clearly, that's the story we're telling ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a big coaching tool of mine, is helping people with the rules they have for getting what they want. The rules are messed up. By the rules we set for ourselves, this is all in the book, we make it impossibly difficult to succeed in getting what we want and tragically easy to fail at getting what we want. Right? Let's say, I'll pick an easy one. Let's say what I want is to be happy. Well, if the rule I set for myself for being happy is people have to like me, that is a rule that I can't control, because I can't control what people think. So it's outside of my control. So I'm setting myself up for failure. So that could be with alcohol, shopping, anything.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then so if we ditch the rule and don't ditch the outcome, don't ditch what we want, stay true to that, then tweak the rule, then we have a shot at getting what we want.
I love this, because, something that I see when I coach a lot of the people in our fitness business program, and even like the people that I work with on their Pilates practice, they'll say like, I'm going to get 3 clients, and it's okay. I love that as a goal, like a rule, but you don't actually have control of when people decide to sign up with you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I like the outcome that you want. We can have that, but I think we need to tweak the how or the rule or the thing you're doing because like you only have control truly about the actions you take. You don't have control of the people who like, this is the time they actually decide in the timeline you wanted to sign up with you. That's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. So in that case, it would be, what is it that you really want? Tell me what you want more than the 3 clients,
Mm.
right? Because
Mm.
why do you want 3 clients? How will you know when you have 3 clients? How will you know, like, when you have,
Mm.
oh, because I'll be happy. Okay, well, maybe let's talk about that. Define happy. Then that's probably the bigger want. So the 3 clients, we're going to tweak that and not make that a standard, but we're
Mm.
going to stay true to the bigger want, the being happy or whatever it is
Oh my
that
God,
we came up with.
you're so good. Yes, because that is making us distill down like what are we really wanting and what do we have control
Mhm.
over for that. Yes. Okay.
Right.
So you've been a life coach for a really long time. So you've been seeing people like helping people figure out what they want in their life for a really long time. Can we talk about becoming a life coach and then the life coach? Correct me if I'm wrong. Like you were life coaching and still trying to control the drinking at the same time, or did you become a life coach after? Like remind me the timeline.
Well, the timeline is I got sober in 2007 and was sober for 14 years from
Okay.
alcohol. And so I became a life coach at that time. I
Got it. Okay.
enjoyed, yeah. And I, by the way, got to raise my babies. They've
Mhm.
never seen me struggle with this, never seen me drunk. I mean, sobriety gave me such a beautiful life.
Mm.
So I was already a life coach. Then in 2020, we moved to a different state. I had never lived outside of California. We moved to a different
Mm.
state, just like people were in 2020.
Yeah.
I was a brand new empty nester. Let's do something new. We moved part time. We were going to split time between these 2 places, and everything was going so great. I just thought, maybe I'm not alcoholic. Maybe I don't have a problem with this. I
Mm.
did drink to numb a lot of stuff that I've worked through now. I mean, it's hard being a mom of 3 kids and having 3 teenagers all at once and having people in your life that are controlling you. You're so young, you don't know how to set boundaries. You don't know, so I'd worked through a lot of stuff in sobriety. And so I got to this place, I thought, why did I quit drinking again? I think I kind of went out on a high note, not a low note. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't really love the word relapse. I just call it going out, but I had a drink again and I decided to try it. I say I went out on a high. It wasn't like I hit a low and
Yeah.
relapse. And that happens a lot and people don't talk about it enough that high achievers
Yeah.
struggle with, if it's not alcohol, it's something else.
Yeah.
Right. So everything I learned about my life coaching was in sobriety.
Okay.
So
Got
I
it.
had worked out that
Yeah.
perfectionism stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
big
Which
time.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay, that we can talk about that in a moment because we would all love to know. Work that out. I call myself a recovering perfectionist because I feel like recovered would
Yeah.
be the perfectionist in me. But okay, I actually think that is something I love about your story. And I thought it would be so cool to talk about because most people, they do go on a low. So they hit a
Mhm.
rock bottom and they have this rock bottom story. And not only is it embarrassing, it's often scary or life changing, like they could have lost it. And you didn't have that. You were actually
I
still,
did.
you did.
Well, that's the crazy thing, Leslie, is so I did have a rock bottom with alcohol.
Mm.
My life in every other area was not unmanageable, but it was about to be. This is back when I first got sober in
Okay.
2007, but I was still holding it all together. Yes, running in the morning, doing all this, but I did hit a bottom where that was
Mm.
about to crumble.
Okay.
And I think it was a spiritual thing. I just thought, I'm going to find a support meeting. I
Okay.
didn't know anyone alcoholic. No one in my family. Believe it or not, my family, my parents, their parents, all my ancestors, they did not drink alcohol. They were just from the South, very religious. They were teetotalers.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I didn't know. I don't even know if it runs in my family.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. And then in 2020, you tried it again, but how did you make the decision to quit again?
I hit another bottom.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, it is a lot easier to stay sober than to get sober. So I tried it again. And I tell this whole story
Yeah.
in the book in a pretty concise way, but I'm an achiever. So I kept thinking, I got this. I can do it. That episode didn't work out the way I wanted it to. We'll try it again. I just kept giving it my all.
Yeah.
And I do share, that's embarrassing in this. In the book, I do share about my last bottom, like the last time alcohol got the best of me. I mean, I was passed out and on the ground. If my husband wasn't there, I don't know if I would. I mean,
Yeah.
it just completely obliterated me.
Yeah.
So I got sober again.
Okay. I think it's true. I think it's probably easier to stay than to get, especially for the achiever, perfectionist person.
Mhm.
It's really hard not to beat up on yourself, to have so much judgment of how did I let that happen? And for the achievers, I interviewed someone who was like, you can have these amazing strengths. Like being an achiever is not a bad thing. And it gets a lot of stuff done. You like take action. People even like you because you get stuff done. But you can also have what he called the basement of that strength, which is I can get stuff done. I can figure this out. I can try and make this happen. So I recognize that. I understand that. I, in my own life, have seen how my achieverness and my perfectionist has gotten me into trouble because I'm like, I can figure this. I figure everything out. So it's hard. Let's talk about the shame and judgment though, because I think this is where you so beautifully wrote it in your book about what are those shame judgment spirals and how do they not help us?
Yeah, well, I think there is some healthy guilt. So I put a guilt assessment in there. Like sometimes we have some guilt and we really do need to make a change, right?
Mhm.
Like I needed to stop drinking alcohol. I think guilt is I did something wrong and shame is I'm a bad person. So
Yes.
I don't believe that there's any room ever. I don't think shame ever holds any room
Yeah, I
in
agree.
yeah, I think it's trash. Yeah.
I agree.
And
It really, I mean, Brene
yeah.
Brown said it, guilt versus shame. Healthy
Mhm.
guilt, I think, is a good sign because it's not, I am this, I did this, I feel bad
Mhm.
about that,
Mhm.
versus I am stupid. No, I did a thing that wasn't very smart. That's the guilt versus shame, right? Like the
Right.
label. Yeah.
And for me, it was really, I had to really define, and this all just happened because I started drinking again. And that is when
Mm.
I really had to look at really how perfectionism was playing a role in all of this. And
Mm.
that is why I wrote this second book, because I had a lot of realizations because of that experience. One of them was that I needed to ask, what is the difference between a perfectionist and achiever? A high achiever will go after their goals and they will achieve them, right? A perfectionist will say, if I have to do this and if I don't, I'm trash. And that's where the shame comes
Mm.
in. So I think perfectionism is, I think there's adaptive and maladaptive perfectionism, right? There's harmful and help, not really helpful, but I would rather call it achiever and perfectionism.
Yeah.
I don't think being a high achiever is bad. I think being a perfectionist can really cause a lot of shame and cause problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. There's this book, I don't remember the name, guys, but I tried to read it about this woman was trying to kind of almost say that it's like okay to be a perfectionist. And I found myself getting mad at her because so I
Was
didn't
it The
finish the
Perfectionist Guide to Losing Control?
yes. And I didn't
Mhm.
even get to the end and maybe she gets better. First of all, I liked the ideas of the different types of perfectionism. I thought that was actually very informative, that there can be messy perfectionists. But I just got real I felt like she was trying to say it was okay to be a perfectionist, and I was like, "It's just not." And maybe I didn't get to the end of her book to figure out, like, where her argument makes sense. But in my life, my perfectionism is what held me back. It's what kept me in a relationship that was not right for me. It's what made me push myself to unhealthy, not sleeping, over exercising, like, different things where in I think it's okay. Like, I don't mind the high achiever label at all because I do like to achieve things and make things happen. But when the perfectionist gets in there, I don't achieve things because I'm trying to over control it
Mm,
in a way that doesn't allow me to see the thing that I wanted to do in the first place.
that's right. Yeah. And another name for high achiever is high growth. Sometimes I just say I'm high growth. We're always looking to grow, and
That's a
but I
better
use
name.
the word high achiever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah.
I just love a reframe. I think, a lot of words like selfishness, I think needs a rebrand because I think so many people think they're being selfish when really it's self-care.
Mm.
But I would love to hear from you, like the be it till you see it. What were the steps that you were taking? And I know it's probably in your book that you got yourself to being sober again. And because actually I think it's and I'm sure you wish that you didn't go through your second bottom, but I actually think it probably makes you a better person at coaching this and
Mm.
helping people
Mhm.
through this because
Mhm.
you have done it. You actually know
Mhm.
what's coming and you can speak your story and probably save people from being curious about it again. But what were the things that you did to kind of help yourself get sober again? Because you had 14 years, so you had something you could kind of see to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm grateful for it because I wrote the book and I had gotten very comfortable in my sobriety. I use the example in the book when your kid ties their shoe for the first time, you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. There's all this celebration. But when they tie it at 10 years old or 14 years old, it's not that big of a deal. So for me, sobriety had become like that. Like I was 14 years sober and I was just thinking it was just part of life. And I forgot how magical and how special it is. So, in order to get sober again, and this really is my answer to the be it question, is focus on your commitments over your cravings. So, it does take grit. We can't just visualize. And I think any recovery program has to be a program of action and you have to be in community. So part of that grit is going to be sticking to your commitment. And then in the book, I have people write out exactly why you want what you want. I wasn't clear on that the first time. I just kind of got sober because I think, well, gosh, I really need to. I have these babies. And then I realized it's such a wonderful life. But then I forgot why. So really know your why. But then more important is stick to your commitment. And when the cravings hit, you have a commitment. It's like we talked about your outcome. That's the part you don't ditch. The things to get your outcome, which I call strategy or tactics, those you can tweak. You could tweak the tactics, right? If something's not working, just pick something else. If it's 3 isn't the person you want in your class, pick a different number. But don't ditch the outcome because I see this. My clients are all high achievers. I see this time and time again where a high achiever will ditch the outcome altogether because either it's not perfect or they're not getting the results they wanted. And so when you get to that area where you plateau, don't throw in the towel, don't go backwards, don't ditch the outcome, keep muscling through it. That's where you need grit. It's like that 2 millimeter shift, right? From going from great to extraordinary. We're already high achievers, we're operating at 98%. What is keeping us from that final 2% shift, that 2 millimeter shift? That's where you have to not throw in the towel, tweak the tactics, and stick to your commitments.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And also, isn't the simplest thing the hardest thing to do?
Yeah, that's why I say grit.
Yeah. I also think the commitment part is really cool. I think also I can see how like in the first time it was easier to stay committed because you had those babies and life was really fun. And I can also totally see how you're like, I'm an empty nester. I got a new place. I probably figured it out. I totally can see that. And then to have to figure out a new commitment to yourself because it had to be a different one. It couldn't be for them anymore. It had to really be for you.
That's exactly right. Yep. That's the key right there. So my son, my youngest, is a rock climber. And something he shared with me really helps me because in rock climbing, the route they take to get to the top is called the problem. And they commit to getting to the top, right? They have an end goal. And that problem, the route to get to the top has to change, like based on the weather or the rock or erosion or whatever. It can't be the same every time, or it can't always be the way they think it's going to be. So they have to alter their expectations. And that's a good visual for me.
I love that. My husband and I wanted to take up rock climbing. I still think it could be a hobby for me. It's just that I just really wish there was a rock climbing gym just a little bit closer because I wanted it to be a little easier to go. But he and we have the same leg length and we're both flexible. So in theory, we could probably do the same problem, go up the same route. I could follow him or I could do what he did because, our leg length is the same. However, his years of experience rock climbing is different than mine. He's okay like swinging a little bit by an arm and like grabbing onto something. He kind of understands how to launch himself. Very different. Also, just upper body strength, very different. So every time we do a route, we'll do the same route and we'll go totally different ways based on like how we can solve that problem and how we can get up there. I think that's such a cool, if you haven't done rock climbing, go. They have beginner ones and they'll take you up. You don't have to do it on your own, but it's a great way to explore what you're saying. I love that. You wrote this book and you dedicated it for you, the reader, and for you, the writer. So it says for you and for me. Who are you hoping reads this book?
Yeah, a high achieving perfectionist that wants to reach their goals and not deal with shame. And you've hit a pain threshold where enough is enough and you're tired of self-sabotaging and beating up on yourself. And, we have all this kind of mental health information right now on social media, and everyone's telling us all kinds of things left and right. So how do you do it? Well, I just hold your hand and walk you through exactly how to do that. So that is my suggestion. You don't have to be alcoholic. You don't have to have an addiction, but most likely you're going to be a high achiever who is tired of being hard on yourself.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think even if it's not alcohol sobriety you're looking for, I do think if you are like ladies, my high growth ladies, like there's something magical about this because you have the uncover section of the book, and then you have the recover, and then you have the rediscover. Did I remember those correctly? Just discover. Yeah.
So that's very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Discovery, uncovery, recovery.
Yes. Yes. So uncover. Yeah. I love these 3 sections because I think it's something we all have to kind of learn about ourselves. And you're right. Like you open up your Instagram app and every self-help person is telling you 17 things you have to do to get to the same. Some people are like, ditch goals to feel better about yourself. Other people are like, you have to have a specific goal and it has to be measurable and smart and all these things. And so the high growth are like, I'm going to take this one. I'm going to take this one. And it can be so much information. And you really do hold the reader's hand as you kind of go through this and uncover what is going on. And I really love your questions that you give, like what rule did you give yourself and like how did that go? And so I think it's in the first part, you guys, you get this amazing section to kind of go over that. And I think it's beautiful and brilliant. Now the book is done, and by the time you all hear this, it's going to be out soon. What's the next thing that you're working towards? Is it like, I feel like, because you are a high growth person, are you just, oh yes, the book is done? Are you like, what are we being till we see right now?
I started writing a third book about about relationships. Yeah. But there's a lot to do still with this book. I would love, I created assets. I wrote a workbook. So I just finished that, just finished edits on that the other day. I created a master class. I created a workshop where I walk people through this. So I created these things so that if people want to buy the book in bulk for a group, and it doesn't have to be an addiction or recovery group. It could be a book club or, like your audience, people that are high growth and they, 2 or more people that want to work through this. I created all these fun things that I am gifting people if they do buy in bulk pre-order before launch day in March.
Okay. This is amazing because, gone are the days you just read a book anymore, everyone, by the way. You have to do all these things.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really true. I guess I kind of wish I went into fiction writing. I wish I could just write fiction because you don't have to put assets with anything in fiction anymore. You write this beautiful thing and you I guess you hope it gets bought by Amazon, but you not only wrote this amazing book where you're so vulnerable and you give so much away. You put a workbook together, you put a course together, all these things. I do think this is a book that is worth reading with your friends, even if none of you would call yourself an alcoholic or addicted to shopping or any of those labels. I think if you are high growth, it is a really good revealer and a good conversation and like a great way to have deep conversations with our friends we probably wouldn't have without those prompts.
I agree.
Yeah. So then you got a third, Chris, you're amazing. You have a third book coming to some time. We'll have to talk about relationships next when you're ready to do that, but we want to stick with this. I like to ask people what they're most excited about right now. So in this moment, what are you most excited about?
So our youngest son got married a week ago.
Oh my God.
And my first kid to get married. So he is actually on his way. They got home from their honeymoon and they're on their way to our house this hour. So that's what I'm thinking about right now is him walking through the door. Both of them. She's my new daughter. So
oh my God.
that's what I'm most excited about. But
That's
yeah,
so beautiful.
work-wise, I'm super excited for the book launch. Really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this book to be published for people so that we could start talking about it with people that have already read it.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. It's a needed book and a needed conversation because I do love how you talked about, and everyone likes the word alcoholic, like that label doesn't feel like feel awesome. And I
Uh-huh.
do love the way you reframe and the way you have an open conversation about the possibilities and also that you get to be sober as opposed to you have to be sober. Like there's just different ways that make things not just accessible, but kind. And no wonder you called it Grace Yourself.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a brief break and then we're going to find out where people can buy this book, maybe get it in bulk so they get all those fun things and your beat action items. All right, Chris, where can people go to buy the book? Where can they follow you? Where can they work with you?
The main place, chrisjanssencoaching.com. That's my website. I keep it updated with all those great bulk offers that I'm offering, making available between now and launch day, the upgrades. That will be at graceyourselfbook.com.
Okay. All right. Graceyourselfbook.com is where those are. Okay.
Yes. I will have a link to that on my website in case you forget. So chrisjanssencoaching.com.
Awesome. Even if just the idea of reevaluating your outcomes and your goals so that you are keeping those commitments in mind, I think that's a wonderful reason to go work with you, Chris. I think so many of us place these rules on ourselves that become boxes that control us versus uplift us. So I think that's beautiful. And you guys, the book launches in March 18th. So we're putting this out early so you have time to take advantage of those amazing offers that you've put together and also the additional work you did to make sure that this book has so much complimentary so it's achievable for people. I really appreciate that. You've given us a lot, especially with the goal stuff, but I do want to, it's not a too long didn't listen. It's, my high growth women, we got to have some steps to be bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted. Because when you're inspired, you're like, okay, what do I do next? So what do you have for us?
Like I said, stick to your commitments. Don't wait for motivation or inspiration. Commit and then get in action and just do it. And the subtitles of both my books are how to show up for the life you want and how to show up for the sober life you want. So the word show up is my number one answer. Show up when you don't feel like it, right? Because it's easy to show up. And as achievers, we like feeling good. We like showing up to work out. There will be seasons or times or days or hours when we don't feel like showing up. And that's when we're going to show up anyway and stick to those commitments.
I do agree because sometimes you're just like, ugh. You're down, you're exhausted, but you know what? When you show up, you always feel better. Yeah.
Always. I think it's easier to show up than to cancel or make up an excuse to yourself or someone else why you didn't show up.
You are correct because the amount of time you spend trying to figure out how to get out of something, you could have just gone and done it. So
Exactly.
I truly learned in ditching my perfection to say no first. And if I decided I wanted to do it, I could always go back and say yes. But this way I didn't say yes to something I didn't want to go to. And then I had to figure out how to get out of it. So
that's good.
Yeah. I'm like, if my gut is saying, I don't think I want to do this, it's better to say, let me get back to you, or this is awesome, but I don't think it's going to work out. And then change my mind.
I love that. I am taking that with me. That's good.
Yes.
I need that.
Do you want to know something else that I also find? So even though everyone knows that your calendar's on your phone, everyone knows this, no one will actually say, oh, check your calendar right now. If you say, I have to check my calendar. No one says that. They're like, hey, I've got this thing going on Saturday. And you can say, oh, I have to check my calendar. And no one is going to be like, your calendar's on your phone. Really, truly, unless they're super pushy, they all just know that you're going to go check it. And that buys me time to just see like, how do I feel about that? Do I really want to go? Because sometimes people ask you things in a state that's like you're feeling overwhelmed. And so that ask just feels overwhelming, but you really wanted to go and then you'd have FOMO. So I just love to buy myself time because it really helps. My husband has a tendency as like a rebel. So he has no problems canceling on people, like just going, hey, it's not going to work out. So sorry, let's pick a new date. And I'm like, we can't. We said we'd be there and we can't go. And I'm like,
right.
So I learned through him. I'm like, let me just borrow a little of that rebelness for that. Before I let you go, I just want to go into, because you said, don't wait for inspiration or motivation. Why can we not wait for those things?
Most days I'm inspired and motivated because that's what high growth people are. If you made a commitment and you want to reach a goal, you can't only do it when you're inspired to do it or motivated to do it. You have to just do it and show up when you don't want to.
Yeah.
That's why I think we can't wait for those things. Because what if something happens that's, my husband and I lost a really good friend a few weeks ago, and it happened right before the wedding, right? We can't go, oh, I don't feel like talking to all these guests. I mean, you kind of just have to grieve, then move into celebration mode, then go back to grieve. You just have to show up.
Yeah.
You have to keep showing up. It can't be based on feelings. So we've got to make decisions.
Thank you for sharing that example. I'm so sorry for your loss, but you're right. So many people would have been like, oh, of course they're going to be at the wedding, but they're not going to talk to people. And they would understand, but also you would have missed out on so many wonderful moments of love and energy and community and family. So thank you so much. Chris, your book is beautiful and I can't wait to read the rest of it. And you guys all are going to go get it at her website. We'll have all those links in the show notes. And please, if you buy it and you buy it in bulk, tag Chris, tag the Beit Pod so we can celebrate it. This is also a wonderful book to give to your achieving friends. But again, book clubs, it doesn't have to be a sober book club. It can just be a club of women who are needing to kind of consider how they're setting up some outcomes for themselves. And Chris will walk alongside you. So thank you, Chris, so much for being here. And everyone, until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network. If you want to leave us a message or a question that we might read on another episode, you can text us at +1 310 905 5534 or send a DM on Instagram at beitpod.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell.
It is transcribed, produced, and edited by the Epic team at Diseño.co.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all of our content to our website. And finally, to Meredith Root for keeping us all on point and on time.